With the world's eyes focused on Iran and nuclear issues, both peaceful and non-peaceful, making the headlines week after week, interest in this subject is at a peak. And where do many people go to try and get insight and answers but to Hans Blix? You are a former weapons inspector, a diplomat and a politician. You've been immersed in this world for a long time. Thank you for joining me.
Pleasure.
So we'll start off with Iran, top story. At the moment, it's very difficult to tell just how serious the crisis is from week to week. Is it in a peak? Is it in a trough? How serious do you think it is at the moment?
Oh, I think it is very serious. You have American aircraft carriers in the Gulf, you have British and French Navy vessels in the Gulf, you have an Iranian admiral or general saying that they might close off the Strait of Hormuz. So it is very tense. And you have Israelis saying that they should bomb Iran, bomb Iranian nuclear installations. And you have American presidential candidates who also seem to say that, yes, we should be very tough with Iran, implying that they might need to bomb Iran. It is a situation that cries for some defusing. A lot of prestige in it, a lot of injured pride, and I think the more belligerent the outside world sounds to Iran, the more the Iranian population will support its government, regardless of what they like or what they think about the government in other respects. It is a dangerous situation.
How likely is it that Iran is really going to say, well, we'll play the game, we'll talk the talk, but really we're getting a bomb and we don't care what anyone else says?
Iran does not need a weapon against Iraq today. They don't need it against Pakistan, against Russia, against Turkey. So I don't see that tremendous pressure. Now this gives me some hope that it would be possible to persuade them to move out of enrichment and to ensure that there will be no bomb making. The question is how you do it. And I don't think it has been done with all that cleverness. I haven't seen all the details, no, but I think it could have been done better. I think often behaved somewhat insulting to the Iranians. You say Iran must behave itself as if it were an unruly 7-year-old boy. It's sort of neo-colonialist tone. This doesn't help at all. I think the Western Europeans, the UK, France and Germany, that were the first who got in with the US at that time as a backseat driver, they came up with rewards and said that, yes, this is enrichment is dangerous, you should suspend it, and we would actually give rewards for that. And they came up with some useful things. They said that if you suspend enrichment, we are willing to help you to get into the World Trade Organization. That was important. We are even willing to help you to build up your civilian nuclear industry. You want to have nuclear power? No problem. We are not against high technology in Iran. We are worried about enrichment. And they said we can facilitate investments in Iran. So there were some goodies actually there on tables. And I think that the Bush administration was more dedicated to sticks than to carrots. So they begin with some economic sanctions and some sanctions on the traveling of the Iranians and so forth. And in due course you only hear that yes, we have to push more for sanctions. That we have run the diplomatic path and only sanctions remain. And so now we are talking about stopping oil, importing and maybe bombing. But I think they've lost their imagination. There are still things that can be done on the reward side. Have they, for instance, said to the Iranians that if we have a settlement, the US will resume diplomatic relations? No, not to my knowledge. Have they said that you want to have a pipeline from Iran to India? Well, if with a settlement you could have it. So there are some things that could be put on the table in a discussion. The biggest thing, I think, would be if the Israelis were to come up and say that, look, we are worried about your enrichment. We think you might use a bomb against us. How about a swap? We drop and do away with our military, our nuclear weapons, and you stop all the enrichment. And Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, all the others, they agreed, they commit themselves, we will have no enrichment, we will have no reprocessing. That is what you call a nuclear weapon-free zone for the Middle East. And I think that's where the aim should be. But if I mention that today, they would laugh at me.
Well, this is the point. I mean, I'll maybe just play devil's advocate with you for a minute. That is one view, nuclear-free zone, but as you say, at the moment there wouldn't be this crisis if there wasn't the perception that Iran is heading towards getting a nuclear weapon. So some people have said that, well, Perhaps it might be a good thing if Iran had a nuclear weapon. Perhaps it might be a useful thing.
I don't think so. I think that any spread, and a further spread, I should say, of nuclear weapons is not a good thing. It is dangerous when there are many fingers on the nuclear triggers. And I don't like the Israeli finger, I don't like the Indian, Pakistani, US, or any of the fingers. I think we should reduce them. At the same time, I don't think that it's the world's end if Iran were actually to come to a nuclear weapon. Israel says it's the existential question for them. I think not. I think that the deterrence will act between Israel and Iran as it acts between India and Pakistan. I think the Israeli nuclear weapons would be somewhat neutralized in their effect by the existence of a weapon in Iran. I can see the risk that Iran would peddle its nuclear secrets and technology to other groups, but that exists already. So I don't think the world comes to an end with the nuclear. Having said that, I think it is highly desirable that Iran moves away and suspends the enrichment.
On that point, that is, a lot of your career has been spent looking at that very question. How do you verify that? How do you know? Where is this technical and scientific evidence?
Well, the actual making of a bomb is not an easy thing. I have not made one. I'm a lawyer, not an engineer. It's not an easy thing. But it's been judged that the most crucial element of the bomb, after all, is the explosive material. And that is either enriched uranium to something like 90% or it is plutonium. And the Iranians can enrich to 20%, we know that, and they could enrich to 90% if they wanted to. So the crucial point remains, do they enrich to more than 20%? Do they stay at this? And it is supervision of that. In that respect, I think we must say that Iranians have been fairly good. They have allowed inspection. They have not declared all that they should. I think they have not lived up to their obligations under the safeguards agreements, but they do. Inspectors are there, and I think they can, and they have the means of seeing how much are they enriching and to what level are they enriching. So long as the inspectors are there, then the world will be assured that no, they are not accumulating material. But of course they could throw out the inspectors one day, or they could. I don't think they can cheat very much.
Many critics of inspection processes and of diplomatic efforts would say that, well, this is all really just a tool of NATO, of the US, and they're just there to get reasons, to get excuses, either for intervention or for sanctions. What do you think about?
No, I'm a strong believer in inspections and in international civil service. International and objective, or shall we say a non-political civil service that seeks the objective data is something we need. And we don't want to have a civil service that plies to the American arguments. When we were in New York, I think we were given credit for trying to get to the truth. And I think we deserve that credit. We were absolutely trying to get to the facts. You cannot be 100%, but when you compare to what the US and the UK were saying about the situation in Iraq and what we were saying, we were much, much closer to the truth, the reality. You know, if a doctor cannot have a good therapy unless he has a good diagnosis, and if government sit there and they make the wrong diagnosis about Iraq or about Iran, well, how can you have the good therapy?
You, as a civil service, however you'd like to call it, give a diagnosis, and as far as you're concerned, the powers that be can do what they want with that. But as you've said, perhaps those diagnoses have been misused. What do you think is going wrong there?
There's a new element also in the IAEA inspection. That came after 1991, because in 1991 we realized that the Iraqis had been cheating the IAEA. We went to declared installations, but not to other places, and they were building things elsewhere. So we said, if intelligence knew about this, if the CIA knew about these things, they should tell the IAEA. The IAEA can then ask the Iraqis and say that, look, we have heard this, we would like to go there and verify. You say there's nothing, then let us in. So we then encouraged US and others to come with intelligence to the IAEA, and they have done that a great deal with Iran. Now, the IAEA for the IAEA, this should be a one-way traffic. The IAEA should not be the prolonged arm of the CIA, because then it loses the confidence of the countries they go to. But they can receive it, they can critically examine it, and of course the CIA or intelligence can always try to fool everybody. Half of the information may be true, half of it may be disinformation, and therefore they have to examine it critically. If we in New York during the Iraq crisis had accepted the intelligence, say, yeah, well, they say it, so it must be so, then of course we would have failed. The IAEA, I think, has been very cautious about the information they received about Iran. So the combination of the tools of national states and the inspectors who are there legally on the site is a very, very useful.
Well, the world doesn't seem to be getting any simpler, but we thank you for helping to make it a little bit more sense of it all. Mr. Blix, thank you very much.
Thank you.